Hello, I'm Ron Strickland. This webcast is one of a series in which I'm presenting some comments on topics in literary and cultural studies. This present installment is one of a group on William Shakespeare's play, A Midsummer Night's Dream. In a book entitled Shakespeare, The Invention of the Human, the literary critic and scholar Harold Bloom argued that the way we experience our lives as humans in the 21st century was, in effect, invented, or at least very strongly conditioned by the writings of William Shakespeare in the late 16th century. In making this argument, Harold Bloom is following in the footsteps of a long line of literary critics who have focused on Shakespeare's characters and have often treated those characters as though they were real living human beings. For example, it was the opinion of the 18th century man of letters, Dr. Samuel Johnson, that Shakespeare's art was so magnificent because his characters show us an accurate representation of general human nature. There's no question that Shakespeare's characters like Hamlet, like Falstaff, Lady Macbeth, King Lear, offer rich opportunities for speculation and debate, for analysis and appreciation. But in a play like A Midsummer Night's Dream, the principal characters are relatively flat. The young lovers are almost indistinguishable from one another. So Shakespeare is drawing on other elements rather than character development to produce a work of comedic genius like A Midsummer Night's Dream. Here I want to point to some of those and to call attention to the importance of Shakespeare's particular historical moment in making a work of art like this possible. Shakespeare's art depends, above all, on the very possibility of a public theater in London in the late 16th century. The first permanent public theater came into being in the late 1570s when Shakespeare was a teenager. The public theater would not have been possible without the existence of a new phenomenon, a large enough population in London with enough disposable income and enough free leisure time to be able to go to the plays and to pay for them. And a significant number of people in the audience with a high enough level of education to be able to appreciate the sophisticated allusions, references, and generic sources of Shakespeare's plays. In the early 16th century, the literacy rate among men in southern England was around 30%. By the end of the century, it had grown to around 80% in a period of just 70 or 80 years. Some members of Shakespeare's audience would have been educated at Oxford and Cambridge and in the Inns of Court, the law schools. Others, like Shakespeare himself, might have studied enough Latin in grammar school to be able to catch some of the references to classical mythology and Roman history. This is not to say that there was nothing like the phenomenon of public theater in England before the late 16th century. In fact, during the Middle Ages, there was a robust, well-established tradition of mystery plays. These were plays that were performed during holidays in the large market towns all around England. These mystery plays consisted of a sequence or a cycle of plays recounting stories from the Bible from Genesis to Revelations. The most famous of them that survives is the Wakefield cycle. This is a photograph of the Abraham and Isaac play as it was performed at a theater festival at the University of Toronto in the summer of 1982. And here's a photo of the Noah's Ark play from the same festival. The productions were not elaborate. Portable stages were built onto moving carts that could be pulled from one location to another in the town. And the merchant and craft guilds maintained inventories of costumes and props from year to year. These mystery plays depended on language, body gestures, the performances of these amateur actors, some of whom, no doubt, developed some skill playing the same characters year after year. And certainly an audience was being prepared for this kind of spectacle. The subplot of the Pyramus and Thisbe play, produced by the Rude Mechanicals in Midsummer Night's Dream, offers yet one more comical digression on the trials and tribulations of young love and romance. But this is hardly necessary, given the duplications involved in two pairs of young lovers, not to mention the rather strained circumstances of the nuptials of Theseus and Hippolyta, and the scenes from A Marriage on the Rocks between Oberon and Titania. Hamlet says that the role of the artist is to hold a mirror up to nature, to reflect human character as it really is. But one thing Shakespeare is doing by including the Pyramus and Thisbe play, performed by the Rude Mechanicals in A Midsummer Night's Dream, is to hold a mirror up to his society, to share with his audience an opportunity for reflection on the revolutionary political, social, economic changes that they have witnessed in their own lifetimes. In Shakespeare, The Invention of the Human, Harold Bloom writes, "We cannot extract from Shakespeare's era or our own social information that will explain his ability to create forms more real than living men," as Shelley phrased it. Shakespeare's rival playwrights were subject to the same disjunctions between ideas of love, order, and the eternal as he was, but they gave us eloquent caricatures, at best, rather than men and women. What I'm suggesting here is that if Shakespeare could hold a mirror up to human nature, he could also hold a mirror up to social reality in a particular historical moment. I'll have more to say about the aesthetic discourses that Shakespeare draws on in A Midsummer Night's Dream in subsequent webcasts. In the meantime, if you have questions or comments, send me an email.